Hello friends, hi, I'm Dr. Shonali Chandra. Welcome back to Back to Basics with me here on our YouTube channel, which is Medicine Decoded. Now, in the previous two videos, I've been talking about normal iron metabolism in the body. I've been talking about what iron deficiency anemia is, how is it brought about, what are the causes. And now I want to focus on one particularly important stage in the life of a woman where the propensity of developing iron deficiency anemia particularly increases because physiologically itself, pregnancy puts a burden on the iron stores of the mother. So let's focus on iron metabolism in pregnancy today. Now, pregnancy is a state where there is an increased demand for iron. On an average, the total demand for iron is about 1,000 milligram. That's a lot of demand for iron which is there, and it has to be distributed over the course of the 9 months of pregnancy. But the demand for iron increases typically because of two reasons. First of all, there is an increase in RBC mass which happens during pregnancy, right? Now, pregnancy is a state where the oxygen demand by the mother is increased. You see, the mother has to meet the metabolic processes of a body. A lot of the metabolic rate is increased, and for all those metabolic processes, oxygen is increased, the demand for oxygen is increased, and also to meet the oxygen demands of the fetus as well, the metabolic demands of the fetus as well. So yes, there is an increased RBC mass that is required because ultimately oxygen is carried by the hemoglobin present in the RBCs, right? So to ensure that oxygen delivery to the tissues is ensured, oxygen delivery to the fetus is ensured, the RBC mass increases and has to increase in pregnancy, and that happens because the estrogen which is there coming from the placenta, the estrogen in high amounts in pregnancy leads to stimulation or increased release of erythropoietin, increase release of erythropoietin from the kidneys, right? So that stimulates a red cell production which increases in the bone marrow. Now, RBC mass requires about 500 milligrams of iron. That increase in RBC mass requires about 500 milligrams of iron. It's to the tune of about 400 ml increase in the RBC mass that happens. That's about 20 to 30% increase in RBC mass. Other than that, the fetus itself, the fetus plus placenta as a unit itself also requires iron, right? The fetus needs to build up its own blood volume, so that also requires iron, right? So this is somewhere to the tune of about 300 milligrams of iron is required for this purpose. Then there's an obligatory loss of iron that always continues from a woman's body or from any person's body. That's to the tune of about 200 milligrams. So there is an obligatory loss of iron to the tune of about 200 milligram that happens over the course of the entire 9 months of pregnancy. And the total demand for iron is about 1,000 milligrams, right? Now, this entire 1,000 milligrams of iron needs to be distributed throughout the 9 months, right? Now, during the first trimester, right, the amount of iron that is required is comparatively less as compared to second trimester onwards, when the demand for iron, when the absorption of iron that is needed dramatically increases. So the amount of iron that needs to be absorbed, if you want to remember one value, please remember it's to the tune of about 6 to 7 milligram per day, starting from the second trimester onwards, right? So that's a lot of iron that needs to be absorbed on a daily basis. From a normal absorption of 1 to 2 milligram per day, this dramatically increases to 6 to 7 milligrams per day from second trimester onwards that needs to be absorbed, right? To meet this increased requirement of a total of 1,000 milligram. So what does that tell us? That tells us one thing, that diet itself, howsoever rich the diet might be, right, will turn out to be inefficient in meeting up this increased requirement until unless supplementation is given. So most of the times diet does not turn out to meet these increased requirements, and whenever the supplementation for iron is given, you see, it's normally given from second trimester onwards. Oral iron supplementation in pregnancy is not given in the first trimester. The reason is that in the first trimester, the demand is not significantly high. There is increased demand, but still not significantly high. That's one thing. Secondly, oral iron itself causes a lot of gastrointestinal side effects. It can cause nausea, it can cause vomiting, it can cause constipation or diarrhea, right? And in the first trimester, the woman herself in pregnancy is dealing with nausea, vomiting, gastrointestinal complaints, some constipation. So she's just adjusting to these symptoms, and there is already nausea, vomiting because of pregnancy per se. So if you give oral iron in the first trimester, it will not be tolerated by the woman. Her nausea, vomiting might worsen. She simply won't eat. There's no point in giving, right? So the oral iron supplementation in pregnancy, when given, is started from second trimester onwards, generally from 16 weeks onwards. Now, moving on further, let's go a little bit deeper into the iron absorption in pregnancy. So like I told you, and if you remember this diagram from my previous videos, how iron is absorbed from the duodenum, from the enterocyte, this figure has been simplified a lot, but I'll just go through it again for those of you who did not watch the last couple of videos. So iron from the diet, especially from the the non-heme source of iron, is in the ferric form. It needs to be converted to ferrous form first, and then it gets absorbed into the gut, and then that ferrous form of iron is absorbed and it moves into the blood circulation via this transport protein, which is ferroportin, which is present in the basolateral membrane of the enterocyte or the gut cell here. And iron that is transported in the form of transferrin, iron bound to transferrin, that will go to the bone marrow, to those sites, to the liver, right? In the liver releases a hormone which is called as hepcidin, and liver acts as a sensor for sensing the iron requirements of the body, right? So what happens is that hepcidin, normally what it does is it inhibits the ferroportin. So the basic control mechanism is that when the body stores are adequate, when the iron demand is not high, right? So body wants to just absorb iron that is just enough for normal balance, doesn't want to overdo the absorption, right? So in those situations when the stores are adequate and the demand is not high, then the liver secretes a hormone hepcidin which inhibits this absorption of iron from ferroportin, because this hormone breaks down ferroportin, right, and leads to internalization and degradation of this receptor altogether. Right? Now, what happens in pregnancy? Pregnancy is a state of increased iron demand. Pregnancy is a state of iron deficiency. So what happens in pregnancy is hepcidin level decreases in pregnancy. That's what happens. That's what's happened, that when the hepcidin level decreases, you see this inhibition does not happen, right? The receptors remain intact, available for absorption, and the absorption of iron is increased. So in pregnancy, there are lower hepcidin levels, and that leads to increased absorption of iron from the gut. First thing. Secondly, even the absorption can be maxed out. You see, and even when the woman is maybe, especially in low income societies, if she is not taking a diet adequate in her iron content, if she is for some reason is not taking iron supplements, her stores would be mobilized. Those stores, howsoever meager they might be, but whatever there are available, they will be used up. Right? They will be mobilized, and iron from those stores, the reticuloendothelial system of the spleen and the bone marrow, they contain macrophages here which have stored iron in the form of ferritin. that stored iron would be mobilized. Iron from that would be mobilized into the circulation, back into the circulation for usage. Now what happens is that this ferroportin which remained intact, it is the same ferroportin which is the transport protein which is involved in taking the iron from the stores back to the circulation. What did we saw in pregnancy? Lower hepcidin levels was causing, the ferroportin receptors to remain intact and function, right? So the ferroportin receptors are there intact to function. In fact, their activity is increased. Increased activity, and therefore more mobilization of stores. That's not everything. That's not all. The important point is that yes, the stores have been mobilized. Yes, the iron has been coming back to the circulation. The absorption has increased. But the purpose is also to provide this iron to the baby, to the fetus. Now, the fetus is going to, extract all the iron that it needs from the mother. Be it the mother absorbs, mother takes the supplements, mother depletes her stores, the baby's needs are going to take priority. They are going to be taken care of. Yes. So what happens? This same ferroportin, which is, let's say, sort of upregulated, whose activity is increased in pregnancy, it is this same receptor which is involved in transporting the iron across the placental barrier. Across the placental barrier, in the syncytio-trophoblast layer of the placental barrier, there is the same ferroportin which ensures that iron is constantly being given to the fetus. Right? So even in the face of maternal deficiency of iron, even in the face of maternal anemia, please realize that the baby stores, the fetus's stores of iron are not compromised. They are not compromised at all. Baby will get its iron supply. Now, moving on further, let's see what happens in the blood circulation. How does it all materialize and how does it all come together, right? Now, let's have a look here. So, this is, let's say, consider a normal blood, right? A normal blood picture here, right? And you have the RBCs in the blood and you have the plasma in the blood. Now, in pregnancy, we all know this, that the blood volume increases by about 30 to 40%, right? And your plasma volume increases much, much more. Look at this. The plasma volume increases much, much more in comparison to the RBC mass. So, RBC mass increases by about 20 to 30% and your plasma volume increases by about 40 to 50%. Right? So, your RBC mass increases less in comparison to the plasma volume, leading to a state of hemodilution. Leading to a state of hemodilution. Despite an increasing RBC mass. So the number of RBCs, the mass of the RBCs, that has increased. But how is it reflected in the circulation? How is it reflected in the circulation? By a decrease or fall in hemoglobin concentration because of hemodilution. So if you were to take a blood sample, you would realize that the hemoglobin concentration is lower than what? Than her pre-pregnancy value. All right, than her pre-pregnancy value. The hematocrit also falls, and this is something which will happen in pregnancy. It will happen. This is called as physiological anemia. Physiological anemia of pregnancy. And this is bound to happen. You know, it starts somewhere around 7 to 8 weeks and reaches a peak or maximum at around 32 weeks when the blood volume and plasma volume changes are also peaking. Right? Now, the point of the importance here is to understand that a woman who started her pregnancy, let's say at a hemoglobin of 13, normal for her, or 14, very good for her. The same thing is going to take place in that woman, and by the time she reaches her, third trimester, 32 weeks, let's say hemoglobin is now become 11, 12, which she can tolerate very fine, no problem. But for somebody who starts her pregnancy with pre-existent hemoglobin levels of 11, 12, which are anemic as per non-pregnant levels, then by the time she reaches 32 weeks, she will have HB levels of 9, 10, which are bad, right? Which are less than what they are supposed to be. So when there is no iron supplementation, right, during pregnancy, when there is no iron supplementation, that physiological anemia has to happen. It will take place. Yes, but in women whose diet is deficient, whose pre-existent stores are deficient, who do not take supplements, they will end up having something which we call as pathological anemia. Right? Their hemoglobin levels are going to drop down to a level at which, continuing their pregnancy is going to be problematic for them, can lead to complications of anemia associated with pregnancy. Right? So what happens normally in pregnancy? We have highlighted here already, hemoglobin concentration falls, hematocrit falls, these stores are used up, stores are being mobilized, serum ferritin falls. What happens to the serum iron? Iron is being used up by the bone marrow for increasing RBC mass production. Iron is being mobilized towards the baby. The serum iron is decreasing. The total iron binding capacity also increases, right? And the percentage saturation decreases, falls. So we realize that pregnancy is very much like a iron deficient state. Pregnancy is very much like an iron deficient state, but with just a subtle and slight differences. Now, this is going to become the blood picture. This is going to become the blood picture without any iron supplementation. This is going to be the blood picture, right? What happens to the mean corpuscular volume? That is the change. That's why I'm coming here. I said it's an iron deficient state, but with slight changes. The mean corpuscular volume in pregnancy, normally, okay, without any pathological anemia, normally in pregnancy is slightly increasing. Slightly increasing. Now, why is that? That is because the difference here, I'm talking about in pregnancy, physiologically, normally in pregnancy, without any pathological edema. In the previous slides, we saw how the RBC production, erythropoietin is increasing, RBC mass has to increase. So there is erythroid progenitors which are present in the marrow, right? They are increasing, right? And a number of such progenitors could be released into the circulation as well. So basically, because of that reason, there are cells or red cells which are also larger than average, giving rise to an overall blood picture where the mean corpuscular volume might be slightly more because of increased erythroid precursors in the peripheral circulation, right? What happens to the mean corpuscular hemoglobin? Well, that is also all these parameters, when you measure them, they are reflected, they are all taking into consideration the hemoglobin concentration. The hemoglobin concentration is falling, so your MCH also falls. But your mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration, it tends to remain on an average normal. So these are the slight differences, and these are the similarities with iron deficiency anemia as far as pregnancy state is concerned, right? Now, moving on further, let us just summarize in a nutshell here in the end. Pregnancy, like I described, is an iron deficient state. iron absorption is increased, mobilization of stores is happening, right? And the requirements of the babies are met. They are going to take a priority. Mother's RBC mass is expanding. So these are the two reasons why when all the stores are getting mobilized and used up, you see, an iron deficient state is created. Women with pre-existent stores will not fare well during pregnancy, right? So for somebody who is having an HB less than 11 gram percent or a hematocrit of less than 33%, that is, as far as given by the WHO, the definition of anemia or pathological anemia in pregnancy. Right? So when the HB levels fall below even 11 gram percent, or when the hematocrit falls below 33%, that is when we call it as anemia in pregnancy, right? Because some of the anemia mild above than this can be physiological also. The diet itself is insufficient, therefore supplementation is required. And also, you see, pregnancy will eventually end up with delivery, and there is going to be some of the other blood loss during delivery that will involve losing RBCs from the circulation, and that can, obviously, somebody who's pre-existently anemic will not fare well with blood loss as well. These are important pointers to note. These are important pointers to note because anemia, when pathological anemia happens in pregnancy, it increases morbidity. What does that mean? That means anemia by itself might not lead directly to death or anything, right? Might not. I mean, severe anemia, yes, can lead to heart failure. Severe anemia, a person can have heart failure because of that. But other than that also, pregnancy is a condition where if there is multiple pregnancy with anemia, that's like a double-edged sword, right? If there is anemia and then the woman happens to have bleeding during pregnancy, already anemic and then losing blood, problem. Anemia plus postpartum hemorrhage, bleeding after delivery, anemic already bleeding, then will not be able to tolerate even little amounts of blood loss. Anemia plus preeclampsia, anemia plus hypertensive disorders of pregnancy. Whenever anemia happens, you see, with any other complicated event in pregnancy, it just makes the course go downhill. It increases the morbidity. It is the most important indirect contributor to maternal mortality and morbidity. It's a very important point. That's why we focus so much on prevention of anemia in pregnancy. You see, anemia, of course, you can say that it can be treated. Whatever kind of anemia it is, it can be treated. I totally agree. But being such a common condition, being such a situation, all these 4 pointers which I have highlighted in front of you, focus should be not only on treatment, but prevention of anemia in pregnancy. For that, it is not just oral iron supplementation in pregnancy or during pregnancy which is going to be helpful. It is going to involve the improving the health and the socio-economic factors surrounding the woman during her adolescence. Isn't it? So, adolescent girl eats healthy, is educated about the importance of iron-rich diet. That kind of educating the woman, educating the young girls is so important that they can take their health in their own hands and make conscious decisions about the food that they eat. Right? So, eating habits, right? Education, supplementation to young girls, right? Ensuring that they reach the reproductive stage with adequate stores, ensuring that women enter pregnancy with adequate stores, right? So somebody who's already anemic, I would tell her, yes, you should build up your iron stores, get your anemia treated, and then, plan a pregnancy like that. And yes, of course, finally, supplementation of iron, oral iron during pregnancy to meet the increasing demands of iron in pregnancy. So this is in a nutshell the iron metabolism in pregnancy. Our body is wonderful. It adapts wonderfully to the requirements, the physiological requirements of our body. Pregnancy is the physiological change that happens in a woman's body, and whatever is happening in the body of a pregnant woman is towards a specific purpose. So yes, there is physiological anemia that happens. Yes, there is hemodilution that happens. And then you can ask me a counter question that why the hell this hemodilution is required. I'll just tell you in a nutshell. Here. Just go through this figure once again, and then I'll tell you why the hell this hemodilution is actually so important. If it is causing physiological anemia, why should it happen in the first place? So let's say these are the two buckets, okay, A and B. Let's just say that, okay, one containing normal blood, one containing hemodiluted blood, right? All right, okay, let's say now I take out 500 ml of blood from bucket number A, and then I take out also 500 ml of blood from bucket number B. Okay, now my question is, which bucket ends up losing more RBCs? Tell me, which bucket ends up losing more RBCs? This one or bucket number B? Bucket number A ends up losing more RBCs. With hemodilution and the same amount of blood loss volume wise, hemodilution, lesser or fewer number of RBCs will be lost, more plasma will be lost. It's nature's way of protecting against blood loss. That is bound to happen during the time of delivery. There is no bloodless delivery. That is nature's way of protection. Moreover, hemodilution is important because it keeps the blood flowing. You see, the viscosity of the blood decreases, blood flows faster. It flows faster to the increasing requirements for the placenta, for the various organs. So there are many reasons why this hemodilution is beneficial in pregnancy, and one pertaining to the anemia and one pertaining to the blood loss I've just highlighted here. And then it can be a topic for another discussion some other time. But let me leave you right here with this important understanding of iron metabolism in pregnancy. Now, if you were to tackle the anemia in pregnancy with this basic set of information and knowledge, you would be able to do much better, trust me. So bye-bye guys, take care, thank you, and I'll see you soon with another video.